Aiesha Cosmos.
Why is integrating the branches of the tree of wisdom important? Is because expanding our perception to experience life through this threefold path opens up the scope of our vision and our capacity to intuit and channel the most astounding possibilities for the future of humanity, way outside the frame of whatever consensus of the different societies on Earth. So there is a need to tell the stories. The ancient science of imagery, which according to Anastasia from the Ringing Cedars, was given as a gift by the Russian Vedic civilization to the Egyptians. And it was the Egyptian priests that thwarted this divine science for their own personal gain. And so in the ancient Russian Vedic civilization, they were like the forefathers of the minstrels, and they were these divine singers that would channel the sacred visions of the delight and harmonious belonging that the Vedic people existed within. They had this very high harmonious personal development that allowed them to synchronize with the wisdom of the earth and the wisdom of the divine in a way that allowed them to have society systems that renewed the divine promise and commitment of humanity to infinity, of creating the divine garden on earth through networks of relationships and all this amazing practical wisdom. And so the science of imagery can be used to seed within the innermost soul's imagination the possibilities that may be, and the distilled, passed down through the ages version of what the Egyptian priests did with this knowledge can be seen through Hollywood or through the music industry, and the way that the storytelling is geared towards planting the seeds of the future within the sacred soul of humanity, because humans in the image and likeness of God are creators, which is why we can conceive life in the divine union of the sacred masculine and feminine polarities. And this capacity to create is able to be programmed by images and stories. So all of the language breakdown of the meaning of Hollywood and the involvement of government agencies and the vetting of scripts or sticking to specific storylines or portraying things in a certain way or talking a certain way. The same thing with the music industry, what gets pumped up, how artists are asked to shape. And so the youth also through music is programmed into this ever deepening degeneracy that is seeking the total annihilation of anything that tethers us to living out our divine promise and fulfilling our sacred mission on earth. It is the test of the times and the huge resolution of this humongous cycle coming to a close, and the new humongous cycle beginning, and the great transition that is taking place, and the way that this science of imagery has the capacity to plant within the sacred soul of the divine son or daughter of the king and queen of heaven and earth, has to manifest what will be. And so there are many stories that are dismal and people are getting super depressed, and the stuff that is getting amplified by the algorithms has been programmed with a specific intent of creating this consciousness noise that incapacitates the true dreaming power of our divine consciousness, and sort of like a hypnotic suspended animation spell of no activity. It's just this capturing of consciousness. The stories that need to be put out into the world require to be so fundamentally bedrock, archetypical, most supreme, pure simplicity, the core of the teachings. And this threefold practice of the ancient Vedic, the Toltec, and the Maya gives visionary insight into all the different facets going on here that allows for stories to come through that can truly evoke the imagination towards the true unfoldment of true human potential, true freedom, true co-creation with the divine, true sovereignty, true responsibility, true divine co-creation between the masculine and feminine polarities of awareness, individually with the divine and with each other through relationship. And by having the capacity to download and envision this new storytelling, the new scope to perceive, we cannot come up with something that we have not experienced. So the radical beauty and power is that practicing these different teachings affords such radical experiences in each of its own direction. It taps into the specific part of our consciousness or our being or our emotional body in such a way that it produces, well, the consequence of the practices, which is growth, transmutation, realization, alchemizing stuff, integrating stuff, reclaiming stuff, purifying stuff, deepening stuff. And the emotional intelligence that is developed, the reciprocity, nature, the capacity to invest in the true well-being of the self, all of these different things that are the byproduct of these specific practices inevitably afford one to then begin to perceive a deeper scope that cannot be perceived until you start having these experiences that are unfolding all of these unknown aspects of how we really can be and how we really are designed and why are we designed this way and how do we work with the way we were created to be able to move in the direction of our true intent. And then also to be able to tell the stories that differentiate very clearly between the path of selfless or service to other or the path of service to self, and what are the consequences of each path and how each path is forged with unique types of decisions and unique types of emotions, and for people to be able to be aware of where certain emotional reactions and certain ways of thinking can lead you in a direction that it would be good to be aware where that goes, just so that you can have a chance of maybe deciding to not go that way if maybe it was just being done out of thinking that you're having fun or that you're just fooling around with something. These paths are all intersecting in the essence of impeccability with self in order to be an impeccable reciprocity with everything, and the depth of healing that we must undergo in order to be able to really begin to anchor that discipline of heart-centered impeccability in our business, in our relationships, in our body, in our nutrition, in our coherent thought, action, feeling. It's just so what I guess some people would say next level living, But a lot of, it could be said maybe wishful thinking right now is for many people to want to level up without really doing this ancestral alignment. And so a lot of the new practices that people are sharing definitely are progression, but this ancestral stuff and this ancestral inheritance of humanity is so the roots that we need, because just how our elders are in the nursing homes and people run away from old age at any cost. Also the roots of the elders and the ancients and the words of the wise ones have been shrouded in the mists of time and forgetfulness by the modern conveniences and the influence of money within the governments of the countries of the world. And so the direction of the stories has been told by this service to self-interest people, and it is very important to be able to reclaim the storytelling capacity, to tell the stories that are not merely uplifting, but that share the depth of the wisdom of what we actually have already discovered on this earth. This is the inheritance of the full picture of what we have managed to learn and discover. So not having access to this knowledge is like being completely unaware of everything we already know. If we could take the consciousness of humanity as a whole, of all time and all civilizations that we have been here, since we have all of these codes in our DNA, we really are the embodiment of those who were before, and we have within ourselves all of the light code memories of everything we have ever been. But all of this stuff doesn't get activated in our active working memory and practical knowledge unless we do all the practices that reawaken these memories, this remembrance, this use of our true design. And so telling the new stories is now of paramount importance, and finding the inspiration, curiosity, and explorative discipline to do the practices without expecting anything in return and without having any concept of what should happen, but just merely surrender to the practice, do it wholeheartedly, completely try and arrange your life for the practice to be as well done and as true as possible, and allow for the practice to do what the practice is designed to do without filtering it through any expectation whatsoever. And so then the thing is that is the secret. The practices themselves have been designed to unlock what the practices do. And most of the human beings that have attained really high sage status were just like really good students that learned with super magic plants or magic people or magic land, magic visitors, and were able to dive deeply into the exploration and the practice and stay grounded enough to not get lost in the vast scope of perception and consciousness, which can be a labyrinth that also can be hard to get out of if there isn't that heart-centered discipline to lead the choices that are being made and the way that we interpret what we see or what we experience or the things that unfold. Sometimes we can come to misguided assumptions about our realizations or about the signs or symbols that are coming to us from creation. So the discernment necessary to be able to extract true knowledge and wisdom from the many different gateways and understandings or experiences that can be harnessed by practices can only be truly developed over time. So only practice over time, without the impatience of expectations of what it should be, so that then through they just practice over time, then all of a sudden you look back and then so much has changed inside of you. So much has found its place, so much has been shed, transmuted, so many things are no longer there. There's no longer the memories or the triggers or the whatever. As much as we continue to grow and continue to learn, practice over time is the only thing that in hindsight allows you to see how the practice changed you. And so we can never go into a practice expecting absolutely anything, because then we won't actually be doing the practice and then we will never have the experience. This is a time for truly bringing forth the new. And the new is the fact that we are now at a state of maturity in the world where we can come back to these practices that have already been a part of us, but come back to them again with new understanding, with new eyes, with new capacity to be grateful and value the wealth of wisdom that has always been there, except that it went underground for so long. And now, having suffered all that we have suffered and being with the stakes so high, with how much we could lose if we don't truly step up in a way that we've never stepped up before, literally, even in previous civilization ages. And so this is like a brand new opportunity to take this wealth of wisdom and to make it ours and to dive deep into the core principles of it and impeccability of it with the emotional maturity of all that we've learned in the last 26,000 years. And it is definitely up to each person. Nobody without the eyes to see or ears to hear will be able to benefit from any of this. It will be incomprehensible jibber jabber for anybody that isn't desiring truly serve and to truly dive into the depth of its self-knowledge and to be able to finally begin to live life as a true co-creator with the divine rather than an NPC or a trigger-ridden being that is living in the echoes of the memories without any capacity to be able to perceive the moment for the sacred presence that it is, not to be ricocheting between past anxiety or future anxiety, is the perfect way to never dive into the treasure of existence. And so all of these practices allow for the personal power necessary to bring in the discipline to be able to start inhabiting the present. Very slowly, it all depends on the discipline and the true surrender to the practice, but it's within anybody's reach that is truly fed up with what they've been doing in their own life and is really at a point of no return and really just unwilling to surrender to the mediocrity of the social conditioning we have inherited.
Connect with the beauty of your destiny. Visit aieshacosmos.com.